Merdeka! 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 Merdeka penuh! Merdeka penuh! Merdeka penuh! Merdeka penuh! Merdeka tetap! Merdeka tetap! Tetap!
West Papua is the western half of the island of New Guinea. It lies just 250 kilometres north of Australia and is the second largest island in the world. Most of the interior highlands are mountainous and covered with primary rainforest. Whilst the habitats of the coastal lowlands are made up of mangrove swamps, sago palms and lowland forests. With over 250 distinct dialects, the vast majority of native Papuans still live a largely traditional lifestyle using subsistence agriculture. The traditional diet of the Highland Papuans mainly consists of tubers, in particular sweet potatoes, including the green leaves. With the domesticated pigs forming an important part of both diet, economy and culture, food is still cooked in a century-old way using a ground oven, just as can be found throughout Melanesia. The coastal dwelling Papuans naturally eat more fish and sago. Due to the remoteness of New Guinea and the impenetrability of much of the interior, large areas of both West Papua and Papua New Guinea remained unknown to the outside world until the second half of the 20th century. But such a resource-rich wilderness could not escape the greed of colonial and corporate powers for very long. First to arrive, uninvited, were the Christian missionaries, whose activities remained coastal for the first few decades. With the advent of aviation, they soon had their own airline, and formerly uncontacted peoples were having runways cut into their homelands, opening up the interior to all comers. Coerced by the missionaries and persuaded by the cargo and goods, the Papuans diluted their own beliefs in return for a secure afterlife. Nowadays, most indoctrinated Papuans would, if asked, say they were Christian believing, whilst retaining some of their traditional knowledge. Just as soon as Indonesia got its hands on West Papua from the former colonial power, the Netherlands, it started a massive transmigration program. To date, approaching 1 million, mostly Sumatran and Javanese peasants, have been transplanted into West Papua. Many were just left to fend for themselves in the newly fabricated transmigration zones and economic centres like the towns of Jayapura and Timika. In order to support its colonisation of Papua, the government of Indonesia, backed by other greedy states, sent in vast amounts of military hardware and personnel. a regime notorious for its out-and-out brutality. The reported numbers of Papuans that have been killed or disappeared thus far is over 150,000. In order for Indonesia's Western partners to be able to extract the vast and highly profitable natural resources untroubled by the locals, a partnership with the military was embarked upon. This is most clearly seen at the giant Freeport copper and gold mine, where the Indonesian military were used to remove the indigenous population from their ancestral homeland and are now paid guards at the US and UK run operation, which makes over $1 million a day profit. But how did this land and its people fall under the control of Indonesia and Western corporate interests? The answer lies with Indonesia and American greed, and one of the most disgraceful betrayals by the UN ever. In the 60s, the Dutch were preparing to leave West Papua, and the Indonesian military invaded. Indonesia claimed that West Papua was hers, but the Dutch had already promised the Papuans their independence. The US intermediated and brokered a deal where the Indonesians would conduct a referendum in West Papua. Then, under the eyes of the UN, Indonesia flouted the rules and rounded up just over 1,000 Papuans of the 1 million plus population. Papa was one of those selected.
Pertama, Kecamatan Pokondini Loner. Nirapi dari kelam Pokondini gembala no kepala suku no obokar kelak gua pianuk. Lapangan kelak gua pianuk. Barisir obokar pinangko no gari. Ante pana gidak me. Tupu kapan ninglak me lengke punuk. Indonesia merdeka kagino tepinaguno. De Papua nda kagino ti mo da kinor guna dul tupu no waya ka lo pinan lo no ne lo gara. Ti odogar 2 hari 3 hari 1 minggu lebih 1 bulan lebih ni mang ke bala pangam bini binang ko. To ko bini. Yo ndo ko diga ya le ni no ma binang ko. Ogi baka ngui lo ko indi lo barise ko. Pagi barise da ni ga ni mang ko diga ko isore ka. Lo binan ni ko ka. Tim panjira Indonesia kagino bebas pinagunde Papua kagino bebas pinagun lego ni yoy le keno tim ndok tetabi ma lo gono no pinangwa la pangan ni ga 1 bulan abu 1 bulan Juli wa bulan Agustus hari na ga ti baka o me on na yam ko ma pinangwa gari o ki me tentara kele polisi o tekele tu puro ko ba me gelili na ga men komandana bengina na ga ni ga mo ngara ki me do ira tuan orang nanti atik ndak ga kaide men Indonesia men men dak nyam melone hey tomo tio ya kada kero kapas tomo toyo ndo ga ni da wena ligi budak ko di ne wena juru bahasa ko lone noti wena ligi gara juru bahasa noti rin kunni ko ana sekolah ko wala men wena ligi ba ni bahasa senne ko le amerati ni non ba wena ligi ko ti no ne juru bahasa ni gene ko wena ligi gara mati prepara no ada banagara jawati yang bagani ni kiti ni te kolambe kalegare we bunar no jabu ni yo bagam te kolang ko wara ni la ni mda wore kola kalega mti Indonesia ni no lo bakir ti yang baga Indonesia ni lo ra ko bakuli ni ki we bakir ni bikwe ni mda ko gambe kolang ko gambe le wala ko yonda bupati gubernur ni mda mulim do no ko gambe lo ra legar mti ni da wore kola ka mti ni nali Indonesia ni lo ko bakir ko ti yang baga.
This story was the same all across West Papua, and despite massive protests reported by the UN Inspectorate, the United Nations then ratified the result that the Papuans had unanimously voted for Indonesian integration, and West Papua fell under the control of the Indonesian military machine. and the brutality and oppression has continued unabated ever since. Each and every Papuan has their own horror stories and records of their recent bloody history. Benny Wenda, a leader of his people, recounts here the events of 1977.
Same time, army they bring an airplane, like they shoot my people by airplane, helicopter, and then airplane like jet, I think same jet. So sometimes the army go and then they just still live and then throwing in the whole dig and then put in just still live, and sometimes they cut it and sometimes and close open, and then they fight, and they sometimes they bring them and cut it hair.
What about the missionaries? Did they help the people?
So that time missionaries are already gone.
In response to this, the Papuans formed the Free West Papuan Movement, the OPM. Matthias Venda, the OPM's High Commander, living in exile in Papua New Guinea, explains.
Oke, itu saya mau jelaskan untuk sebagai pengkhianat bangsa itu termasuk sebagai pengkhianat bangsa sudah kerjasama dengan Indonesia. Itu saya akan jelaskan bahwa Indonesia kan negara sudah terpimpin militer, dan dia datang sudah tanam sebagai jadi tanam akar, sudah jadi tanam akar di tanah Papua. Di tanah Papua dia sudah tanam, dia jadi akar, akhirnya dia negara terpimpin militer, akhirnya dia terhadap bangsa Papua itu segala sesuatu maupun pembangunan maupun segala sesuatu dia mau bertelak atau dia mau kerja atau dia mau mengambil hasil itu dia tindakan dengan alas negara senjata, dan senjata itu dia beli itu senjata dari hasil Papua, hanya melalui emas dan minyak. Dengan hasil Papua itu dia beli senjata di Amerika atau di Inggris atau di mana-mana, dia senjata, model senjata datang terus dengan senjata itu dengan tindakan. Siapa mau berpikir dari Republik Indonesia dia mau keluar dari negara ini, dia ada sedikit menuntut hak kebebasan untuk dia sedikit, itu langsung dapat Indonesia dia tindakan dari secara militer, tindakan. Baik. Mau ambil orang punya hak untuk tanah, hak milik tanah untuk pribadi, khusus tanah khusus itu, tanah Papua tapi khusus itu dia pribadi, buaya kah apakah dia bikin itu dia bilang baru dia tidak bisa untuk dia ampung-ampung, ditembak, dibunuh. Bapak yo.
Over the years, the Papuans have kept documentary lists of all the Papuans murdered or disappeared.
So this one is the last one that's in Wamena, action in Wamena 2000 last year, 6 October, and my people they die, Eliasar Alua, and number 2 is Agus Murib, Hermes Tabuni, Robi Hesegem, Martinus Wetipo, Lewi Hiselo. This name of people.
Pembangunan ambil di tembaga, ambil hasil emas, dan semua Indonesia diambil itu kami tidak mau, karena Indonesia dia membunuh jiwa rakyat itu sudah genap 38 tahun hampir, atau sudah 40 tahun, sudah cukup untuk Indonesia dimusnahkan jiwa raga itu bukan sedikit. Berapa juta sekarang itu sudah termasuk?
200.000. 200.000.
200.000 jiwa dan sudah Indonesia sudah korbankan, apalagi minyak tanahnya, emasnya, buayanya, kayu-kayunya, kayu gaharunya, semua hasil Papua itu Indonesia sudah makan, sudah cukup untuk dia korbankan untuk bangsa Papua Barat.
All of this killing is about control and exploitation of Papua's wealth of natural resources. The knock-on effect on the environment and people is nothing short of devastating, as the tailing polluted river downstream of the giant Freeport copper and gold mine clearly shows.
Kedua, saya sambung lagi bahwa Amerika, Inggris, Indonesia datang ambil emas. Itu saya harap saya tuan tanah, saya ala beri tanah bangsa Papua ini dari Sorong sampai Samara itu, saya punya hak, saya akan berbicara.
The multinational mining and energy corporations, blinded by their greed, refuse to acknowledge their contribution to the Papuan genocide. Operating with full military support, often at a price, and without the prior informed consent of the Papuan people, are Rio Tinto Zinc, Freeport McMoran, British Petroleum and Conoco. In addition are the many expatriate logging companies known to be working closely with the out-of-control Indonesian military, who own most of the logging concessions. These are primarily from Korea, Thailand and the Philippines. Witness to all this natural resource robbery and gross human rights violations have been the many factions of Christian missions. Even before Indonesia had annexed West Papua in 1969, Christian missionaries were acting as the spearhead of population pacification and cultural erosion of the formerly free-living and independent tribal groups found throughout the island of Papua. Their complicit behaviour raises many questions. Even today, the missionaries are the first into an uncontacted tribe.
Amin. Kali kopi. Orang kali kopi. Merdeka! Hidup merdeka! Kita merdeka! Menjadi gemar anak-anak Papua. Jangan lupa kirim surat ke Kelikmali. Kopiana, jangan lupa kirim surat ke Kelikmali.
Nowadays, the Papuans are as united as ever behind their universal desire for freedom from Indonesian oppression, Papua Merdeka. Right across Papua, the various OPM groups openly object and show their defiance to Indonesian rule. Previously, the OPM have taken hostages and attacked the Freeport mine in a desperate bid to have their issue raised internationally. In December 2000, near the highland town of Ilaga, one OPM commander, Titus Murib, held a defiant flag-raising and political rally for his people. Being denied a political voice in Indonesia, their only hope is with the outside world.
Pemerintah Indonesia segera mengembalikan hak kedaulatan bangsa Papua Barat yang pernah ada tanggal 1 Desember tahun 1961. Kedua, bahwa bangsa Papua Barat pada penentuan pendapat BPRA tahun 1969. 3. Pemerintah Indonesia segera dihentikan praktik praktik politik genosid atau pemusnahan Papuanis atau Melanesia Soid. Dan nomor 5, kami meminta pada pihak perusahaan Freeport Indonesia komponi harus dihentikan karena merupakan proyek politik Indonesia dan Amerika. Keenam, kami minta pihak yang paling bertanggung jawab, yakni Amerika, Belanda, PBB dan Indonesia, segera mengadakan dialog internasional di hadapan rakyat Papua Barat.
Born out of a grand assembly of tribal elders in February 2000, the Presidium Council has a parliamentary structure with a panel of representatives from all regions, and originally 2 elders, one from the highlands, Tom Banal, and one from the lowlands, Thais Eloi. In May 2000, with funding from the more moderate WAJIB government, the Presidium Council organised a conference. For the first time ever, people from all over West Papua came together to tell their stories and voice their desires. It culminated in a unanimous declaration of independence and a refusal to recognise the 1969 Act of Free Choice. Thais Eloi then stood up and appointed himself as singular leader of the Presidium and Tom Banal as his deputy. Thais travelled to the Pacific Island Forum and to the US, but as the hardline military forces gained power in Indonesia, he was arrested with 4 other members of the Presidium. He was later let out on house arrest, where he continued to be a voice for the independence movement. He challenged his arrest and refused to sign the Special Autonomy Bill. He also publicly paid tribute to the OPM. Thais had become a real threat to Indonesia, and on the 10th of November 2001, Indonesian Special Forces assassinated him. A day later, his wife told what happened.
Hari Jumat, Bapak dapat telepon dari Komandan Kopassus, Komandan Kopassus Tribuana ya. Di Hamadi diundang untuk makan bersama hari Sabtu. Tapi Bapak malam minggu ya. Iya, tapi diminta Bapak Komandan itu ketemu Bapak jam 8 pagi di rumah Bapak Aceh. Bapak jam 8 tunggu-tunggu, komandannya tidak datang. Jam 11, setengah 11, komandannya datang. Ketemu dengan Bapak. Saya undang Bapak untuk hadir malam harinya, hari Sabtu malam untuk ikut acara makan. Langsung Bapak turun setengah 12. Bapak turun ke Jayapura. Bapak di Jayapura bisa di hotel Mertua. Selesai itu jam setengah 7 Bapak telepon ke rumah. Bilang, Mama, saya sekarang mengikut acara. Acara, saya bilang oke Bapak ikut semua. Selesai Bapak dari selesai acara itu jam 10 kurang 10 menit Bapak telepon, Bapak sudah selesai acara. Bapak mau pulang, saya bilang oke. Kemudian jam 10 lewat 10 atau 15 menit sopir telepon bahwa Bapak dengan sopir dihadang dengan mobil, Bapak mau diculik. Jadi Bapak dan sopir diculik. Lalu sopir bilang, Mama, Bapak sudah dibawa lari. Mama, saya selamat. Mama tolong berdoa. Bapak dengan saya sekarang diculik. Itu saja ucapan yang terakhir dari sopir.
The initial reaction from the Papuans was to burn many of the shops and hotels owned by the army. But this rage soon turned to an outpouring of grief. Thousands of people marched through the streets to his funeral.
Beliau telah pergi untuk selama-lamanya. Beliau keluar dari rumah ini pada tanggal 10 dan kembali ke rumah ini. Beliau keluar dalam keadaan sehat walafiat dan kembali ke rumah ini dalam wujud jenazah. Bersama-sama berikut. Pertama, mengutuk perbuatan pembunuhan Ketua Presidium Dewan Papua yang terhormat Bapak Selesai menyatakan perbuatan tersebut adalah perbuatan teror di luar batas-batas kemanusiaan yang tidak layak dilakukan di tanah Papua yang telah dinyatakan oleh rakyat Papua sebagai zona damai. Mendesak pihak kepolisian Republik Indonesia untuk melakukan penyidikan dan penuntutan secara tuntas terhadap pelaku-pelaku tersebut.
There has still not been a proper investigation into his death, which is being blamed on insignificant Kopassus soldiers, whilst leaked documents reveal that his assassination was ordered at the highest levels of government. With power becoming more concentrated in the Presidium, sections of the population got together to make their voices louder. They include students and women's organisations and an organisation called DEMUC, the Penis Gordes People's Assembly Council, which represents the voices of mostly Highland people and works to keep their traditional culture strong. Benny Wender is the chair of DEMUC.
My name is Benny Wender and I am leader for the Penis Gordes People Assembly Council. I moved with a refugee because I'm leader for DEMUC. Maybe we call it in Indonesia Dewan Musyawarah Masyarakat Koteka. Okay, and in English we say the Penis Gordes People Council Assembly. DEMUC it's new grow last year, 2 years ago, and this one organization from islands people, and island people, special island, but DEMUC means DEMUC we call a tradition. Okay, DEMUC all Highland and Highlands tribe. We use tradition dress, and we call koteka. This just symbol from West Papua dress. And Indonesia make all change, our tradition change. That time my people all killed, my father and my mother, my family killed by Indonesia. And then organization like DEMUC, we have no. From island people, they have no, and not many organized people from islands. And our people still poor and still under by other people. And then now we see my people die until 1977 until now, and then we build a DEMUC. And then now we handle all organization, no organization, but all Highlands people. Okay, we bring them and we teach them and how development, political development, and TPA and OPM, and we teach them and we learn together. And all people like independent people from Biak, Serui, and Sorong, Fakfak, Manokwari, Temika, Puncak Jaya, or Wamena, and then Merauke, Jayapura. They hope 1st December they can get independent. But no, I move here because spy or police, they looking for me, and then I run away and I base in here. Army looking for me because I'm leader for DEMUC. So DEMUC is one thing. DEMUC build only independent. DEMUC don't like autonomy except for everything, but we need independent, just independent.
DEMUC work closely with AMP, the Alliance of Papuan Students, who have bravely demonstrated in the main towns of West Papua and across Indonesia. All political activists are highly oppressed. In December 2000, 50 Highland students were brutally tortured and free killed by police in a random act of extreme aggression. The leader of the AMP has also had his fingers cut off as a warning. Fearing similar treatment, many students and members of DEMUC, including Benny Wender, escaped to Papua New Guinea, where they set up a refugee camp. Although safe from Indonesia, they have not been granted refugee status and could be forced to return to their deaths at any time. In June 2002, Beniwenda ventured back into West Papua to communicate with other members of Denmark. He was arrested and has been kept in poor conditions on a false charge until now.
Mama Yosefa punya pikiran kecil. Saya seorang ibu, tapi saya melihat untuk semua orang yang ada di tanah Papua, semua suku yang masing-masing ada di tanah Papua, untuk beranikan, untuk diaturkan, itu saya lihat siapapun juga, orang menulis, orang tahu baca, orang tahu sekolah, juga tidak bisa sama sekali. Jadi saya seorang ibu, saya tidak tahu sekolah, saya orang tidak tahu apa-apa sekali. Tapi saya menangis. Kenapa? Harus kami belum sekolah, tapi dengan tidak tertulis itu harus dilengkapi dengan dalam rumah setengah itu. Jadi kami sudah diatur dalam lembaga adas. Kami sudah dititahkan lolosuri, lereknosuri, dan amumenesuri yang sudah dititahkan. Tapi sudah diciptakan ini, saya melihat di Indonesia, sekarang ada di dalam Indonesia yang kami sudah dititahkan 3 onai yang besar untuk diaturkan. Orang Papua punya keinginan, kemauan sudah diatur. Tapi sekarang ini semua diajak-ajak dengan prinsip Indonesia itu. Pergi mengancur dengan uang, mereknosuri itu juga. Pergi mengancur dengan kekayaan apa yang datang dengan perempuan, mengancurkan keluarga. Pergi bawa datangkan apa bas perempuan, mira, menghancurkan orang punya keluarga. Sampai dengan kami punya lembaga yang 3 onai yang ada di tanah Papua itu dihancurkan. Bukan onai itu, bukan rumahnya. Onai itu ada di atas payung, tapi di bawahnya orang kulit putih, orang kulit hitam, orang yang rambut nolong Indonesia, berapa suku yang ada, berapa puluhan suku yang ada di tanah Papua di sini dibunuhkan, dihancurkan dan dihabiskan. Saya rasa menangis, rasa sakit. Sampai dengan bagaimana Barat bisa katakan. Ini yang saya rasa bangga sekali. Kenapa ini?
Jadi harus merdeka! 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 Merdeka!
Salam Papua! Merdeka! Salam Papua! Merdeka! Sekali merdeka! Merdeka! Sekali merdeka! Merdeka! Papua! Merdeka!
Ga